Good day, people. This is Kosaki again. I'm coming back to our last phase. Of investing in 7 different baskets. I started, on the first phase. I went to the second phase. Now I'm on the last one. The first phase was about forming up like a group of people whereby you have to actually formulate those people, and each person must come with 10 people, and then you start holding 100 rand, and then after that then you save that money as that capital that you will donate on a day-to-day basis in one account. Second phase, we spoke of, continued with investing, like investments, whereby we spoke of principles of investments. And then third phase, we spoke of debt. Like we made it clear that debt is a trap. Now, on this week, we're talking about stock. What we are going to do in this video, we are actually going to talk. We're not going to use like a strong language of financial ratios, financial terms, or perhaps like we're not going to go deeper. We're going to just tap on the introduction of finance and all of that, but we will share like what is it that you need to know in order for you to invest in stock. It's important that when you are investing in stock, you know exactly what you are getting yourself into. Sometimes other people, they hear about the word, they don't understand what does it mean, and some of them, they want to invest in stock, but they really don't have time. But I want to actually tap into this one first. Who is an investor? Who is a person that can invest? I can tell you now, investor can be any person. You do not have to have a status. If you have money to invest, that means you can be an investor. But as an investor, you've got to understand that you are expecting a return. And when you are expecting that return, you are actually trying to brighten up your future. So to brighten up your future through investment is to actually create wealth. And as you are creating that wealth, you are actually trying to actually make your tomorrow better. That is why I always mention the term that the rand that we have is better than the rand of tomorrow. That is actually Benjamin Graham term, one of the most important, or perhaps like the professional person in finance, in investments. He's a well-known person. When you go to the finance, you ask any person about Benjamin Graham. I call him Ben Graham. Like, he's a very good person in terms of understanding. I read his books quite a lot, and they've helped me to understand the terms of investment. But now, as I've mentioned that, are you an investor, or who is an investor? An investor is any person that has got some money that he wants to take it aside. He wants to get the returns. And now, as we are talking about the stock, I want to tell you now that, to invest in stock, you don't actually require any sort of like profession. You just need to understand what is it that you can do. We are going to first define the stock as to like what is it that so that we can be able to understand what you are putting yourself into, what is it all about, and all of that. I'm going to read the definition. The stock market refers to the collection of markets and exchanges where regular activities of buying, selling, and issuance of shares of publicly held companies takes place. So that means when you're buying a stock, like you are selling, other people are selling, and either you are a seller or you are a buyer. but there's quite a lot of change that is happening there. Other people are selling, are buying, and others are issuing shares and all of that. So basically, stock is all of that. That is the principle of stock. When you are actually in stock, you must expect that if you want to go to the path of stock, that means you'll be focusing on going to sell what you have. But obviously, when you are entering the market, you will first buy the stock. And then after you bought the stock, what happens? As the time goes by, when it is ready for you to sell what you have bought, and then you'll be able to do that. Now, I want us to go to the understanding of the stock, because what does it need to do? How does a person sell? How does a person buy? Well, when it comes to stock market, you sell, first of all, it happens in a certain place. That is I can mention like a stock exchange. Stock exchange, that is whereby the exchanges are taking place, because you'll have a person that have got shares, that person has got stock on shares that he wants to sell, and then you want to buy, because when you are buying that type of stock or those shares in the stock market, that means you want to buy now so that in future you can be able to sell. But obviously, when you are selling, when that time of selling comes, that means your objective or your main expectation is to make sure that you are getting a return. We call it a return. We don't call it a profit, because that's a different term in stock market, in finance. Because a return is actually what you have actually put forward first. That means you bought with what you had, and then now you are winning. That means you are profiting. That means you are actually getting a return. So by the time you are selling, that means you are expecting a return. You're expecting a return on other people that you are selling. And the most important thing when it comes to stock is that everything is transparent. You know what you are buying. There is no hidden agendas. You know what is important for you as a buyer, that you are buying the shares that you are buying on stock market, that you want to actually own those shares, so that when the time is right. What do I mean by saying when the time is right? I mean to say that when the value of the shares that you want to sell is going to be better. Let me make an example. The shares that are being sold on the stock market now is 3 rand. Now you buy that because you can afford it. Let's say you have 100 rand. You buy those shares of 100 rand. Now in 3 years to come, the shares that you bought, which is each of them was 3 rand. You spend 100 rand, so that means you bought a lot, because if you can take 3 rand multiply on the rand, 100 rand that you've spent, and then that means you will be actually buying a lot. You'll be keeping in your basket a lot of stock, of shares. So you keep that for a period of 3 years, and after that period of 3 years, what happens? You sell them based on the value that is actually showed, that the shares that you bought for 3 rand, maybe each share is 100 rand. Can you see the difference? You are winning. Now, one of my audience, one of my actually viewers, they will ask a question: why are we talking about stock now? Because you are a life coach, we want you to motivate us and all of that. Well, it's important that we touch base on money, because the most important thing that I love doing is to make a difference in a person's life. So we have ways of working, of making money, which is like getting employment, but some of us don't understand what we need to do with the money that we have. So I've been sharing like different ways of saving, investing, and all of that. So that is why I am sharing this video, so that you can understand the terms of buying a stock, selling the stock, and all of that. So the purpose of me to do this presentation is to actually let other people know that it doesn't mean that when you're actually having shares that you are a high profile person. No, you can do it if you want, and also research what you actually wanted, because the most important thing is that when you are buying some things, when you are buying some shares, you've got to understand that you need to know what you are putting yourself to. What do I mean by that? You need to understand that the shares that you are buying are of value, and they will actually bring you a return, which is you need to sort of conduct a sort of like an assessment to what you are buying. Of course, there's actually different functions of market, which is like whereby you need to understand the rules of demand and supply and all of that. But we're not going to get deep on that, because that will actually confuse us, because if I actually go deeper, and then, it will actually make a sort of like confusion, and other people have that tendency of doubting. But you've got to start small. I made it clear on other phases that when you are actually investing, when you are actually saving, you start to save and you continue to invest. And then the main objective is not to actually invest a bigger amount. You can hear even me now, I'm talking about 3 rand. 3 rand in 100 rand. The main objective is to create a habit. Once you start to develop that type of a habit, then it's easy to do. It's easy to take like a huge lump sum of money to invest. So yeah, there's actually quite a lot of things that I've actually mentioned now on this video, but I want us to go back to to one of the rules that I would like us to actually tap into, because it's important that as you are an investor, you understand what you are putting yourself into, and you understand that you are actually objective on what you have, and also you want to have a return. And I want to actually tap into this question of building wealth in your life. It will boil down to 2 questions, as you're actually trying to buy stock. Are you able to save each year? When you save, where do you put your money? That is why I'm bringing this presentation. I made it clear that for you to be able to actually invest, you've got to make sure that you always monitor like the time that you want to invest. Like if you're buying your shares, when are you buying your shares? What is your age? And how long do you want to be to actually keep your shares and all of that? When are you actually planning to sell them? Because obviously when you are selling them because you want to get a return. And I've made it clear that the most important thing is to make sure that you start very early. And where if you are starting early, it will actually save you a lot of risks, because obviously there will be risk involved. But now that means if you are buying a stock like this year, if you have heard that there is actually shares that are available on the stock market, which is you can always buy that. And once you bought that, then you can make sure that you utilize the time frame that you have to keep until the price of the shares that you bought, they have actually been raised up. You decide if you want to sell them, or maybe you continue buying until the right time actually comes. So and I actually want to mention that the most important thing that you need to remember is that when you are actually when you are buying a stock, when you're actually buying a stock, okay, I made it clear that like you need to start early. I said that already. And I want to clarify that, I want to tap into this part that when you are actually on stock, you just need to understand that as you buy the stock, let's say that I've got a company, and in that company I want to actually, let's say my brother has got a company and I have interest in that company, and I've been actually watching the progress of that company, and I could see that there is a potential. So what I can do, if I have some money that has been set aside, I can take that money and actually, if I have interest and it's part of my passion to actually run the similar type of business. Now, the money that I've been saving aside, I can actually invest in that company by doing what? By maybe like do what I am passionate, especially if they've actually publicly publicized that if you have interest to invest or perhaps to be part of our company, you can come and join us. So by joining us, that means you'll be actually having shares. So for you to have shares, that means you'll have to take the money that you have and also invest in that company, and obviously when you are investing in that specific company, you are buying shares. As you are buying shares from that company, that means you will be able to have an ownership in that company. So once you have that ownership in that company, that means you can make a decision in that company. You can sit in the board when maybe the company is trying to do some developments. You can always be part of that, and your actually ideas of changing the company, when the company is strategizing, is trying to take ventures to other parts or perhaps other activities of other companies that are improving, you can be part of that. I want that to be clear, but I want us to continue. Let's come to the part of the market. One of the things that I like about the market, there's a big guy that is called Warren Buffett, Warren Buffett is one of the best investors. He started he started in 1964. He invested for a period of 30 years. And then after that, he's actually made about 30 billion rands just to take a risk, at that time. And then now he's a well-known investor. He's been consistent in investing. So I'm just sharing that, so that we can understand that, to invest in stock, to invest in shares, you can be like Warren Buffett. I can be like Warren Buffett, especially if I'm trusting what I'm doing. That is exactly what is required. In investments, you've got to make sure that you understand and actually know what you are putting yourself into. Now, I want us to tap into 7 golden rules. So as you're actually being in the stock market, the first term that you need to understand in the market is that when you are actually buying stock, you need to think of a long term. You need to think of a long term, because when you're thinking of a long term, because you want to get a good return, you can't actually think of only a short term and then you expect to get a good return. And the second rule, these are 7 golden rules. The second rule is that when you are buying like a stock in a market, when you are buying shares in a business, you need to look at the good companies that make good investments. Now, good companies that make good investments is companies that are not losing. It's companies that they won't be liquidated. It's companies that they will be able to manage, their business. It's companies that they won't take a risk by borrowing to other companies, and they have to actually return or perhaps pay back those liabilities that they have incurred during the process of, transacting and growing the business. You look at companies that are good, and the companies that are good, that's my idea, that they are actually companies that are good in adapting to technology, and companies that do not borrow money, companies that are making profits, and those companies are actually can finance their own business. Rule number 3, you've got to make sure that you buy with a margin of safety. Well, when it comes to margin of safety, is actually when you actually knows that the money that you are spending, you're spending the money to this business that you have actually bought stock from, and you know that the stock that you bought from this business, it's not going to be liquidated, then whereby you'll be hearing that those shares, they are void, So by doing that, it's important, Okay, I want to state this quote of Warren Buffett where he says, it's far better to buy a wonderful company at a fair price than a fair company at a wonderful price. That means you've got to buy a stock in a company that will be able to progress, that you have hope that this company, you have conducted research, that this company will be able to sustain itself on the products that it is selling, right? That is rule number 3. Rule number 4, do you own homework? Do you own homework and own what you know? Which is obviously, you have assessed every corner of the business and you know exactly what you are putting yourself into. And you've got to understand that the business, even if maybe the times of economy can change, but that business will actually succeed. You know that, that is your homework before you get into, and that is actually the knowledge that you have for you. That is rule number 4. Rule number 5, don't follow the herd. Stay calm and rational. One of the most important things when it comes to investment is to understand that I'm taking a risk of investing this money to this business because I know that regardless of my situation or any situation that may arise, I am not going to go back and go and say, I made a mistake, I want to take my investment out. No, that is not acceptable. You are putting yourself at a huge risk when you are doing that. You've got to understand that when you are doing something, buying a stock in the business, you have made a decision and you've got to relax. Don't be threatened by the markets, by the economic climates that are changing. You made a decision, stay put, stick with it. That is rule number 5. Rule number 6. It was rule number 5 previously. This is rule number 6. Rule number 6 states it clearly that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. But remember, you mustn't have too many baskets, right? This is very clear. You mustn't have too many baskets and then you get confused at how to deal with those baskets when you have to make a decision. Rule number 7, never stop learning. Never stop to obtain new knowledge as you are an investor. Thank you, people. Thank you. Have a blessed one. Bye-bye.